My heartbreaking journey after my marriage ended. Here's my full story. He slid the decree across the cafe table and whispered, "Don't do this." My name is Alex, 31, the nurse who has learned that silence has vital signs. I listen for changes, a stuttered inhale, a glance that won't land, the way a hand grips a mug too tightly when the truth draws near. I used to hear those signs from patients in room 7 and teenagers in the ER hallway. Lately, I hear them in my own kitchen when Jordan pretends the past year wasn't an autopsy. We met at a rooftop party when I still thought I could fix anything with a chart and a checklist. He dazzled, fast and clever with stories that could buy a room's attention for an hour. Somewhere between the stories were tiny needles, jokes about my modest little job, questions about real ambition. The way he called the hospital my habit rather than my calling. You would think I'd be numb to contempt. Nurses wade through it like disinfectant. But contempt, at home, corrodes in slow motion. The night I grabbed a go bag and slept in my car wasn't cinematic. It was dingy carpets, a key turned twice, and texts from mutual friends saying, "Take a breath, it's probably a phase." I wanted to believe in phases the way we believe fevers break by morning. This morning is different. Jordan has the decree. I have a folder. Inside, there are screenshots, 2 bank printouts, and a photo of a storage unit lock I didn't know existed until last week. My reputation at work is clean, no drama, no tardies, solid outcomes. If I cave now, my name becomes ballast for his image, and the debt I didn't make becomes mine to shoulder. I could walk, sign, pay the penalties in quiet, and tell my future self it was worth the peace. Or I could open the folder and let oxygen touch whatever is growing in the dark. I picture a courthouse fluorescing like triage, a mediator watching us like traffic, and a screen where numbers will stop being rumors. I don't want revenge. I want reality to stop shape-shifting. Jordan says, "We can fix this privately." And the word privately lands like a glove over my mouth. I set my hand on the folder and feel my pulse answer back. I didn't know the real emergency was already on file. We met in late spring, when the city pretends it never knew winter. Jordan noticed the Band-Aid crease on my wrist and said, "You look like someone who repairs the world." It felt like praise. Later I learned praise can be a hook. In the early years, he brought coffee to my shifts, learned the names of my frequent flyers, and kissed my knuckles in elevators. He said he loved my steadiness, the way I could breathe through chaos. Then chaos became his stage. At a dinner with his coworkers last November, he lifted his glass and told the table I was heroic. He meant it, I think, then squeezed my knee and murmured, "Still, you could do more with a brain like yours." I laughed like it was a flirtation, but the laugh tasted metallic. At Christmas, he called my overtime cute, then posted a photo captioned, "Married to a saint with zero business sense." We fought in whispers that night so the neighbors wouldn't hear. He said, "It's a joke," and I said, "It's a pattern." The last fresh wound bloomed 3 weeks ago at Mia's apartment. He told her, in front of me, that nurses are just professional handholders, and added that I was lucky to have him to handle the real-world stuff. Mia said, "Alex handles the real-world stuff on 12-hour shifts," and handed me water like we were in recovery. When we left, the car was a fridge. Inside that cold, I realized we had stopped being partners and become PR for each other. In photos, we looked glossy. At home, our sentences had expiration dates. I kept a list of tiny humiliations in my phone like vitals. Day 181, rolled eyes at meal planning. Day 202, mocked scrubs as pajamas. If contempt is acid, mine didn't blister. It made pinholes I couldn't locate until everything started to leak. By the time I begged for couples therapy, Jordan said therapy was for folks who need scripts to feel normal. I booked anyway. He skipped twice and arrived once with charm, treating the session like an audition. Dr. Hale wrote minimizes and reframes on her pad, then met my eyes. I didn't know she had already circled another word, financial. The first cracks were quiet, like hairline fractures under paint. Late nights arrived with explanations that sounded pre-chewed. Networking drinks, a colleague's birthday, VR demo that ran long. I'm not jealous by default. I'm trained to triage. So I triaged the bills. The joint card had 3 lift charges at 2:11 a.m., 2 bars we don't like, and a florist receipt on a Wednesday evening when I was charting bed sores. "When did you buy flowers?" I asked. He said, For my mother, but his mother hates lilies, and the receipt said stargazer. There were ATM withdrawals, $200 here, $300 there. On days he claimed to be home binging shows. Our rent auto-pay bounced once and Jordan blamed the bank's glitch, then blamed my obsession with tiny numbers. Mia said, "Start printing statements," like she was lacing my boots before a hike. I told myself every couple has seasons where money sloshes. Anyone can misplace a receipt. But one night I picked up Jordan's phone to set an alarm and saw a notification from an app one didn't recognize. Rook? It's a betting platform, I learned later. Back then, I told myself Rook could be a chess thing. When I asked, he threw the word controlling so hard it ricocheted off the walls. I apologized for asking, because asking felt like blasphemy against the temple of cool. Then came the message from our landlord about the lease addendum, language I'd never seen. I Googled the clause numbers while stirring pasta and my hands shook in flour like snowfall. Couples can survive 1,000 pinpricks if they tell the truth about where it hurts. We weren't telling the truth. I kept breathing, counting in fours like we teach anxious patients. 1, 2, 3, 4. Rent due. 1, 2, 3, 4. Car insurance. 1, 2, 3, 4. Jordan's eyes sliding left. At work, Mr. D collapsed in triage, and I caught his shoulders before his skull met tile. Saving a stranger felt simpler than saving a marriage that kept dropping weight. I didn't see the fracture line running straight through my name. Escalation came disguised as a dinner reservation. Jordan booked a new spot with pendant lights like moons and menus with minimal vowels. We were supposed to look like we still belonged to each other. The server poured water, Jordan poured performance. He told a joke about nurses and clipboards to the couple beside us, and when I didn't laugh, he asked loudly if I was on call for feelings tonight. I said quietly, "Don't do that." He said, louder, "Then don't make me the villain because you're scared of success." Before dessert, my phone buzzed. Our landlord again, asking me to confirm acceptance of addendum C moving us month to month at an increased rate due to risk profile. Back home, a white envelope waited on the rug like a tooth under a pillow, an overdraft notice for a joint checking account I didn't know existed. "When did you open this?" "You said you wanted me to take initiative," he shrugged. Then another knock, a process server with documents naming me guarantor for storage unit 311 in Queens. The email on the contract looked like Jordan's, except for a hidden extra period. "Identity theft is wild right now," he said, folding his arms like a tutorial. "Give me the key," I said. Misplaced. I photographed everything and texted Mia. At the table, we argued in loops until the words felt linty. "Are we separating?" I asked finally. Jordan stared at the wall art and said, "Maybe 90 days, see if we miss each other." 90 days is how long a deep bruise hides under a rib. "Then we need mediation," I said. He smirked, thumbed a message to the landlord, "We're sorting privately," and called me dramatic. Mia arrived with bins and a look that said, "Finally." She buckled me into the car like I was post-op while Jordan posed in the doorway, martyrdom staged by hallway light. "Don't make this ugly," he said. "Adults share passwords," I answered. He didn't. I grabbed our marriage certificate, a handful of tax returns, and the fireproof envelope clicked shut like a seatbelt. On the drive to Mia's, the city washed past like in 4 drip, steady and indifferent. He smiled, relieved, and said, "Perfect, start the break tonight, okay?" Exile wasn't cinematic. It was Mia's futon and a towel rack that fell off the wall twice because I kept hanging my wet hair on it like a habit. Her cat, Fig, patrolled my duffels and decided my socks were prey. I made lists, change mailing address, pull credit report, call HR to update emergency contact. Aunt Rosa called from the South Bronx, voice like chamomile. "Take inventory," she said, "and don't be ashamed of needing help." The first night, I slept 3 hours and dreamed I was counting pills that multiplied faster than I could swallow. In the morning, a group chat lit up, friends choosing sides with emojis. Someone wrote, "Jordan's under pressure, be kind," and I muted the thread. At work, I almost hung ceftriaxone on the wrong patient. My hands shook so hard I rechecked wristbands like a mantra. Dr. Hale squeezed me in on her lunch break. "Name your realities," she said. Reality 1. The lease addendum I never approved. 2. The storage unit I never rented. 3. An overdraft from a ghost account. 4. A partner who treats privacy like a moat. Mia brought a whiteboard, and we wrote in block letters, "Document everything." We set up a shared folder called Case File because naming things can be a lever. Rosa came by with arroz con pollo and the look of someone who has lived through worse. "Don't let pride turn temporary problems permanent," she said, signing a check for my half of the rent until payroll sorted the address. She added, "Also, stop apologizing for breathing loud." Across town, Jordan posted a selfie captioned, "Reset era, growth is messy," and I blocked him to save oxygen. The landlord emailed offering a courtesy extension if we submitted updated financials, which meant he wanted my pay stubs. I replied, "We will communicate via mediator." That night, I opened the credit report and saw a soft inquiry from Rook Holdings LLC. The date matched the florist receipt week, the one with stargazers. I realized the bruise might be the shape of my signature. Mia and I drove to the storage facility listed on the guarantor notice, gray corrugated hallway, numbers stenciled like a prison census. Unit 311's lock was new brass, not the cheap disc style we used when we stored our winter coats last year. The clerk, a guy with a tattoo of a fishing hook, checked the account and frowned. "Primary renter is Jordan Ellison. Guarantor is you," he said, turning the monitor slightly. The email had that extra period again. "You can't open without the renter," he added, but his eyes softened when he saw my hands. He printed the transactions anyway. 3 cash payments. One declined on April 12th, then a successful swipe at 11:46 p.m. I took a photo of the receipt in the hallway and my own face, as if future me would need to remember the humidity of that air. Back at Mia's, I opened our joint cloud and searched Rook. The app bled into a folder called Utilities, like it was hiding at a party. The login screen flashed a masked email and a phone number 1 digit off from his. A burner, maybe. I tried, forgot password, and a recovery prompt offered an address at ProtonMail. That's when I checked Venmo. I'd never scrolled past transactions with pizza emojis, but now I saw 6 payments from J, E, to K, with lightning bolt captions. The dates nested neatly with the florist receipt and 2 of the Lyft rides. I made a list of names and amounts like charting morphine doses. Then, while sorting old voicemails off my phone, I found one I'd missed. Jordan on March 3rd, background crowded. "Alex, baby, if anyone asks about the lease addendum, you signed it, okay? Just tell them you forgot. Trust me." The words "trust me" wobbled, like a gurney while hitting a crack. I saved the audio to the case file. At 2 a.m., the apartment was a submarine and Mia snored softly like bubbles. I stared at the ceiling, counting off patients I've watched steady themselves after anesthesia, thinking how they all needed one truth to hold. The next morning, Aunt Rosa texted 3 words that sounded like scaffolding. Paper, people, places. Find the paper, talk to the people, visit the places, she said. I didn't know the next place would smell like casino carpet at noon. I took a personal day, which for nurses is like requesting permission to borrow your own lungs. First stop, our bank. The manager, Alvarez, knew me from the coffee shop next door and raised an eyebrow at the file under my arm. "I need to confirm accounts tied to my name," I said, sliding my ID and marriage certificate across the desk. He tapped, paused, tapped again, then turned the monitor slightly, careful to cover certain lines with a folder. "There's a checking account ending in 3571 that was opened 6 months ago," he said. "Application lists you as an authorized user. Signature on file doesn't match this," he added, glancing at my license. He printed the signature card after I invoked the words fraud alert and identity theft. The loop in the A of Alex looked like Jordan's J dragged sideways. Next stop, a cafe 2 blocks from Jordan's office where his coworker Priya sometimes worked late. She slid into the booth like a courier with bad news. "He's been leaving early Thursdays," she said, lowering her voice. "And there's a guy who shows up, thick gold ring, calls him rookie in this greasy way." Priya's eyes darted. "He asked me to scan pay stubs once," she added, "but the amounts were different from HR's," and she showed me her sent mail, subject lines like, "Jordan pay stub March, per your request." I photographed the timestamps. Then to a strip of storefronts near the stadium where I'd once patched a fan's eyebrow, behind a smoked glass door, a lounge, daylight dimmed to hide math. A bored hostess told me they didn't open until 4, but a man in a slate suit appeared at my elbow, breath minty, eyes like receipts. "Looking for someone?" he asked. "No," I said. "Looking for something, clarity." He laughed, the kind that always finds a seat. Back outside, sun too honest, I dialed Rook customer support and waited through chirpy hold music until a human told me they couldn't disclose anything without the account's last 4 digits. "The digits are my dignity," I said, and hung up before I cried. On the subway back, I listened again to Jordan's voicemail, rewinding the lilt when he said forgot, like the word could be folded into a napkin and thrown away. That evening, Mia drew lines on the whiteboard connecting dates and names. The pattern looked like a pulse that kept skipping. One skipped beat pointed straight at a name I didn't recognize, Cassandra. Cassandra wasn't a mystery for long. Her profile was public, all sunlit brunches and captions about manifesting abundance. In one photo, a wrist with a stargazer lily tattoo circled a highball glass. The same wrist appeared in a mirror selfie taken in a bathroom I recognized, the lounge near the stadium. The wallpaper a forest of metallic palms. I followed the breadcrumbs, a tag post from April 12th at 11:33 p.m. timestamp nearly kissing the storage unit swipe at 11:46 p.m. Venmo showed Jordan paying Cassandra $450 with a caption of a bolt and palm tree emoji the next morning. Another payment, $780. 2 weeks later, same emojis, same hour. My stomach did that elevator drop when we get called to trauma. I wanted to believe it was an affair I could grieve in 1/10 syllable, but the numbers told a rougher story. Alvarez emailed to confirm 2 cash advances on the 3571 card, $1,000 and $1,500, the latter triggering an NSF fee that someone reversed after a phone call. The lounge's Yelp page mentioned private poker Wednesdays. Rook's terms of service list parleys and cash-out restrictions in calming fonts that made me itch. I drove to the storage facility at noon, sun punishing, and watched a woman with a lily tattoo roll a garment rack into Unit 311. She used a code different from Jordan's birthday. I snapped a photo before she shut the door and texted Mia. She's connected to the unit. 15 minutes later, a text arrived from an unknown number. "Stop stalking people, Alex. Be better than this." The message included a photo of me in the parking lot, taken from across the street. My throat closed like an airway under anaphylaxis. I sent the threat to Rosa, who called immediately. "Stakes changed," she said. "This isn't just betrayal, it's leverage. You need to think safety." She gave me Lawyer Chen's number and said, "Call, ask for document preservation and a letter." That night, under the hum of Mia's fridge, I listed risks: credit tanking, workplace gossip, physical safety. The image of the garment rack kept returning, not glamorous, just necessary, like he was storing a second life he couldn't afford. I whispered to the ceiling, "Would you risk your credit to keep someone else's secret?" And then Jordan texted, "Sign tomorrow, or your job here's everything I know." The threat clarified the air. I called Lawyer Chen at 8:01 a.m., voice clipped but kind, and emailed the case file while we spoke. "You need 3 things," he said. 1. A fraud affidavit with your bank. 2. A preservation letter to the storage facility and Rook. Demand they retain logs, camera footage, IP addresses. 3. A timeline that ties the transactions to your absence from consent. He pronounced consent like a gavel. I printed the fraud form at the nurse's station between vital checks and filled boxes with the same hand I used to steady IVs. Meanwhile, Mia combed old emails for any digital lint Jordan left behind. She found a PDF named Budget 2024_final_final. PDF with a hidden worksheet labeled Settle. The sheet listed Unit 311, pay down by July, Rook losses, cover with rent delay, and a line that made my fingers go electric. Add Alex's signature to guarantor forms. Practice again. We screen recorded scrolling and saved the original file. I called the storage facility and asked for the manager. When he offered to help Jordan by deleting a late fee note, I said, "We've sent a legal preservation request," and the line went crisp. Dr. Hale squeezed me in after lunch and asked the question that counts. "If you keep this quiet, what do you buy? 30 days of peace or a lifetime of erasure?" I said, "Both," and cried in an embarrassing hiccup, and she didn't flinch. We rehearsed sentences for mediation. I am not responsible for debts I didn't authorize. And this is not a marriage issue. This is fraud and coercion. At home, I recorded a call to Jordan, legal in our state, and asked directly, "Did you open account 3571?" He sighed, then launched into a monologue about my cop brain, then said, "Fine, I'll fix it, but you have to stop being dramatic." "So that's a yes," I said, and he swore, which the transcript captured faithfully. Chin suggested a meeting with a bank officer who could verify the signature card against my license. "Invite a witness," he said. "Two, if possible. And don't go alone." Rosa volunteered like she was tightening her laces. We set the meeting for Friday at 10, and Mia wrote the time on the whiteboard in all caps like a new holiday. An hour later, a no-caller ID rang, and a man said, "Don't show." Mediation fell on a Tuesday that smelled like copier toner and old carpet. The conference room had too many chairs, as if indecision required seating. Jordan arrived 10 minutes late in a jacket I bought him for my cousin's wedding. Hair perfect, smile switched on. "We don't need lawyers," he said before we sat. "We need a reset." The mediator, a gentle-eyed woman named Klein, set ground rules about interruptions and respect. Jordan interrupted anyway, thanking her for helping us keep private things private. He slid a packet across the table, printouts of my schedule, photos from my socials, and one screenshot of a chart note where I'd misspelled ceftriaxone. "She's overloaded," he told Klein. "You'll hear paranoia today." My mouth went dry. I looked at the door and saw Rose's reflection in the glass, mid-breath, ready to become ballast. Klein asked about finances, and Jordan performed concern. "I made mistakes. She's magnifying them." When I opened my folder, my hands trembled so badly the paper tab hissed. Jordan leaned in and whispered, "If you crucify me here, I'll tell your supervisor you're unstable." Something in me wanted to shrink and nod and accept the story where everything is my fault and the rubber stamp comes down and I can go home and sleep. Rosa coughed once, the kind of cough that means, breathe. I clicked the pen shut, like she'd taught me, and spoke in the slow cadence I use when giving discharge instructions to someone who wants to bolt. "There is a checking account ending in 3571 with my forged signature," I said. "There is a storage unit I'm listed on as guarantor, opened with a burner email. There are cash advances documented by the bank manager, and a voicemail where Jordan asks me to lie about a lease." "Jorge." "No," Jordan grinned. "Everyone has voicemails," he said. "You're making drama into doctrine." Klein asked for dates. I gave her dates. She asked for copies. I slid copies. Jordan's knee jiggled under the table, rhythm set to denial. At the first recess, he followed me into the hall and pressed his palm flat on the wall beside my head, a teenage move he'd never used. "Don't torch me," he said. "You owe me discretion." I thought of the photo from across the street, the message telling me to be better. When we reconvened, Klein said, "These items are outside my scope. You need a bank officer." Jordan laughed softly and shook his head like the adult in the room. "We'll handle it," he said. I almost believed him because I wanted to stop drowning. Rosa scribbled 3 words on a pad and slid it to me. "You already are." Then my phone buzzed. "Stop or we leak your patient's info tonight." The text knocked the air from my lungs, but fear clarified the mission. I forwarded the threat to lawyer Chun, who replied in minutes with a template labeled "Notice to Cease and Preserve." He added, "Report to hospital compliance." Now, I walked straight to our compliance officer's office, cheeks burning, and told her everything I could without naming Jordan. She thanked me for protecting patients and filed an incident report, crisp and clinical as a suture. "If anyone contacts you claiming authority, call me first," she said, handing me a card like a shield. We set the bank meeting for Friday at 10. Alvarez agreed to host in a glassed-in cubicle where privacy is performative. Chin would dial in. Rosa and Mia would sit behind me. The night before, I couldn't sleep. I made tea, sorted documents, practiced with Mia, facts first, feelings after. "Anchor to timestamps," she said, tracing the whiteboard web we'd built. "Every time he blusters, go back to the paper." Rosa packed empanadas, because courage rides better with food. 10 a.m., the bank. Alvarez greeted us with a managerial smile that cracked when he saw the preservation letter. He called over a fraud specialist named Daria who wore sensible shoes and a look that said she knew every way a signature can lie. We compared the signature card to my license. Even my layman's I could see the hesitations in the forged A, the odd slant of the X. Over speaker, Chin asked Daria to pull IP logs and workstation IDs for the account opening. She nodded, typed, then froze. Application completed online from this branch's public kiosk, she said, turning the screen so Daria could see, not me. Timestamp, March 3rd, 1941. I scrolled my calendar. I was on shift that night, triaging a 3-car collision. Mia remembered bringing me coffee at 20:05. Alvarez printed the kiosk access logs. We also need camera footage for that date and time, Chin said. Sentencing depends on evidence that doesn't blink. Daria made the request, lips tight. We were finishing when the bank's glass door opened. Jordan swept in like a weather system, Cassandra 2 steps behind, a cream trench tied loose, tattoo bright. I'm here to fix a misunderstanding, he announced, ignoring Rosa's low growl. Alvarez stiffened, professional spine reassembling. Jordan's gaze cruised over the table, landed on the signature card, then on the empanadas, then on my hands. This is between spouses, he told Alvarez. Let's not escalate. Mia stood. We're escalated, she said, voice the clean edge of a scalpel. Jordan's phone buzzed. He glanced down and smirked, like he'd already seen the ending. And then Daria said quietly, you should all see this footage together. We stood in a side room where the air conditioner made a throat-clearing sound every 20 seconds. Daria pulled up camera footage from March 3rd, 1936 to 1951. The kiosk's angle caught shoulders, wrists, and the lower half of faces reflected in the glossy screen. At 1941, Jordan appeared, baseball cap low, jacket collar up, Cassandra beside him tapping a phone. He glanced over each shoulder, then typed. Daria paused, zoomed. The reflection showed him holding my driver's license, flipping it once like a magician's card. He signed sloppily, then wiped the kiosk's edge with his sleeve. Cassandra slid something, looked like a printed signature sample, out of a manila folder. Daria didn't narrate. She didn't need to. The room's silence thickened into gravity. Jordan started clapping slowly. So I opened an account poorly, he said. Married people share finances. She asked me to. No, I said, and my own voice startled me with how flat it came out. I was in trauma at 1941. Mia pulled up a time-stamped selfie of us with the crash cart behind my shoulder, that bleak fluorescent lighting you can never fake. Rosa whispered, God is punctual. Chin on speaker asked Daria to continue. She scrubbed forward to April 12th, 11:44 p.m. Jordan again, alone, this time feeding cash into the ATM-like kiosk, the storage unit's logo dangling from a key ring on his finger. He looked like a man reloading a lie. Daria printed stills, each one a small indictment. Jordan's jaw bunched. Cassandra shifted, eyes glassy. He told me you were separated, she said suddenly, voice wobbling, addressing me without looking. He said the unit was yours, and he needed help moving gifts. Rosa inhaled, slow as a tide. Alvarez looked at me. Do you want to file a formal fraud claim? He asked. It felt like consenting to surgery. You signed because living with the wound will kill you faster. Yes, I said, and my hand didn't shake this time. Jordan exploded then, volume dangerous, calling me vindictive, calling Mia a leech, calling Rosa an old-world tyrant, calling Daria a petty bureaucrat, calling Alvarez a coward. Security appeared quietly, like good anesthesia. Chin's voice cut through. We'll also be notifying the lounge and the platform rook. They'll want to cooperate when they realize the exposure risk. Jordan whirled to Cassandra. Say something, he hissed. She stared at the stills of his hands and said, You said you were paying me back today. The room went utterly still, like before a code. Jordan's face changed, and he said, Fine. Tell them where the money came from. The word money detonated quietly. Daria clicked her pen once, the sound of paperwork beginning. Cassandra swallowed. He pawned your grandmother's ring, she said, eyes pleading with me, then flinching from Rose's sharp intake of breath. My stomach dropped. That ring had lived in our sock drawer in a velvet shell since my mother died. Alvarez printed another report, 2 checks written to cash within days of the pawn receipt. I'll fix it, Jordan said, but the tone had shifted from swagger to scramble. Alvarez escorted him to a separate desk, security hovering discreetly. Daria took my sworn statement. Chin scheduled a notary and asked me to forward every digital trace by end of day. Outside, sunlight felt clinical. I texted our landlord to revoke consent for any addendum he claimed I accepted. He sent a string of blame-heavy messages which Mia captured and filed. Hospital compliance looped back with gratitude and a warning that any harassment against staff triggers legal counsel. They offered me an escort to my car for the next month. That night, the group chat erupted. Half the people were Switzerland. 3 took Jordan's side with words like overreacting and private matter. One sent me a voicemail of Jordan calling me addicted to being a victim. I blocked numbers until my phone felt lighter. Sleep didn't come. When the alarm went off at 5:15, my bones felt bruised. At work, I missed lunch charting a combative patient, then cried in the bathroom because my badge lanyard snapped and it felt like proof I was failing at gravity. Dr. Hale reminded me grief is a task, not a mood. Your nervous system believes home equals threat, she said. Teach it different with repetition and boundaries. Lawyer Chin filed temporary financial restraints the next morning. The magistrate signed a narrow order preventing new debts in my name. Jordan messaged, "Congratulations on lawyerizing our marriage," then sent a photo of the ring receipt, captioned, "It was yours too." I forwarded it to Rosa. She quietly called a cousin at the pawn shop who promised to hold the ring if it came through again. Mia built me a wall calendar of tiny wins. Fraud claim accepted. Rook acknowledged preservation letter. Storage facility froze access pending investigation. I, meanwhile, gained 2 gray hairs and a new intolerance for euphemism. Then a certified letter arrived. Jordan was contesting the fraud claim as mutual. We answered his contest with more paper. Chen submitted the footage stills, kiosk logs, my work schedule, and Klein's mediation notes. "Keep living like the order exists," he said. "Let the court catch up to your reality." So I built routines. Run 3 lights to the park and back. Stretch while Fig menaced the yoga mat. Cook rice on Sundays and freeze in flat bags so dinner isn't an abyss. I moved from Mia's futon to a sublet with a view of an alley and a fire escape that becomes a ladder for the moon. I bought a second-hand dresser and lined it with cedar because my mother liked things to smell like trees. I wrote boundary scripts on index cards. I'll respond to legal communication through counsel, and I won't discuss this at work, and no is a complete sentence. Dr. Hale taught me the 3 breaths. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 6. I used them when Jordan tried a nostalgia assault, sending me the photo of us on the rooftop, sending playlist links, calling the ER desk at 2 a.m., asking to speak to my heart. Compliance blocked his number. I filed a police report for the threats, an act that felt like knitting my name back together stitch by stitch. Rosa came over and helped me write a no-contact letter with exceptions for lawyer-approved logistics. Mia helped me change passwords and set up credit monitoring that chirps like a smoke alarm if someone breathes on my file. We reclaimed the ring. Rosa's cousin came through. I cried in a strip mall parking lot holding that velvet shell like a baby bird. The storage facility released unit access records. Cassandra's name appeared twice with Jordan's authorization, then stopped. She DM'd me an apology that read like a confession balanced on a ledge. I didn't respond. Boundaries don't require exit interviews. At night I woke up less, or when I did, I could talk myself out of apocalypse with facts. The order existed. The fraud claim advanced. My paycheck hit the right account. Fig remained committed to hunting elastic hair ties. Once, passing the hospital gift shop, I almost bought a mug that said resilience, then decided I didn't need to sip from my own burden. On the court date, Jordan finally showed up alone and empty-handed. He sat on the wooden bench outside the courtroom like a boy who'd missed the bus. No entourage, no trench, no smirk that knew the ending. Just Jordan in a wrinkled shirt, foot tapping an old argument with gravity. When the judge asked for evidence, Chen laid out a quiet museum, stills of hands, logs that don't lie, my badge timestamp, the voicemail where he rehearsed my consent. Jordan tried to alchemize charm into reason, but the room had run out of alchemy. The judge's orders weren't cinematic. No gavel slam, no gasp, but they were oxygen. Temporary financial restraints extended, instructions to unwind unauthorized debts, directives to maintain no contact except through counsel. A note that any attempt to access patient information would trigger sanctions beyond family court. Outside, the air smelled like rain on hot sidewalks. Mia hugged me so hard my ribs complained. Rosa pressed the velvet ring shell into my palm and said, "You didn't just survive. You told the truth to a room." Telling the truth didn't make me a hero. It made me a person again. I moved home to myself slowly. One shelf, one plant, one drawer organized so I could find bandages when I nicked my thumb on a can. Work steadied. I apologized to the charge nurse for the weeks I'd been a ghost, and she said, "We know your care never left the room." If you're where I was, counting lies like pills, start dull and simple. Dates, amounts, places. Save everything, even the messages that make you shake. Loop in one person who loves you more than they love being comfortable, and one professional who isn't impressed by anyone's performance. Don't barter your credit score for a month of quiet. Don't drink from mugs that celebrate the labor you didn't consent to perform. Teach your nervous system a new address with repetition, not willpower. One hopeful image: the fire escape outside my window tonight, jeweled with rain, and my grandmother's ring warming to my skin. One practical takeaway: write boundary sentences in advance and rehearse them until they feel like breath. Tomorrow I'll sleep early, because finally nobody else holds my keys.